Today's story comes from the continent of Africa. It took place a long time ago, and it took place starring a man named Sakuba. Anybody here named Sakuba? No? Sakuba is a different sounding name, but you know the reason that the name sounds so different is that the language that Sakuba spoke also sounded different. See, Sakuba was from a group of people called Bushmen. Bushmen, yes. And they're people who lived out mainly in the bush, meaning they would live in the jungle. You need to talk to Miss Marlies about it then. They would live mainly in the jungle, and they would hunt and take care of their own selves. They didn't live in any big cities. They didn't have any roads or cars. They just took care of themselves with their bows and arrows and their huts. And they were very different from all the other people in that part of Africa. One of the main reasons they were different is because they spoke differently. And I brought actually a little clip of what it sounds like when a Bushman talks, because we have recordings of it. I'm going to play it for you. So listen and see if this sounds like how you talk. Now, of course, you won't understand them, but it's not just that you can't understand their words. They make different sounds than you and I make. Listen. You hear those sounds? Listen. They make clicking sounds with the thumb. All those sounds, that's part of their language. And they can talk and click at the same time. It's really hard to do. I could never do it. But they grow up speaking like that. And so that's why I said Kuba's name sounds different to you for one reason, because his language was different. And you know, their language was so different from everyone around them that everyone was kind of scared of them because they couldn't really talk to the Bushmen. Nobody else who lived in the other tribes around knew how to talk to the Bushmen. And they knew the Bushmen were fierce fighters, even though they were all short. They're all very short. They would not grow very tall. But they were very strong fighters. And so everybody else, when they would see a Bushman, would go, "Oh, a Bushman!" and they'd be kind of nervous of them. Well, Sakuba and his family were sleeping in their hut one night, and Sakuba woke up that morning. Hi, good morning. Sakuba woke up that morning and he said to his family, "Gather around. I must tell you my dream from last night." And the Bushmen really believe dreams are important. And Sakuba said, "I had a dream where there was a book, and it was glowing, and I wanted to read it, and I couldn't read it. But then a big glowing white thing came down. He was a man who was glowing white, and he taught me to read the language that was in the book. And then he said, you must go find the people of the book so that you can have a book for yourself." What book do you think he was talking about in that dream?
The Bible.
The Bible. And what was the white being that had come down to talk to him?
Jesus.
It was Jesus or an angel. I'm not really sure, but it was something that taught him to speak the language of that book. And his family said, "Oh, Sakuba, so you are going to go traveling to find someone who knows the book?" And Sakuba said, "Yes, that's what I'm going to do." He said, so how will you talk to them? Because nobody else speaks our language." He said, "I will talk to them. I know that the shining being has taught me their language." They said, "Okay, Sakuba." And they believed so much that these dreams were real, that these dreams were important, that they said, "Okay, Sakuba, go." So his family said goodbye to him. They didn't know how long it might be until he would come back. And Sakuba started walking. And he walked for 150 miles. That's a long ways. That's way further than any of us had to go to get to church today. He walked and walked for days and days until finally he came to a village. And it was a big village. It was a town. And he came into the outskirts of the town, and people looked, and everybody saw a Bushman. They recognized him because they dressed in a certain way. They wouldn't wear a lot of clothing, and they would carry their long bow. They had a long bow that they would use with arrows. Their bow was almost as tall as they are. And they would carry it around with them, and they had arrows that had poison on the tips. And everybody was so afraid of them because they knew Bushmen were so fierce fighters. Everybody went, "Oh, a Bushman, a Bushman!" Until Sakuba found someone who didn't run away from him at first, and he said, "Excuse me, I am looking for the people of the book." Now, you might think to yourself, oh, so when Sakuba said it, it sounded with all those clicks like he talks, maybe something like... But you know what? When he spoke, the man looked at him and said, "How are you able to speak my language?" Because he wasn't speaking in the Bushman language. Sakuba had never gone to school. He'd never learned any other languages except the language that he learned growing up. But now, because of the dream that he had had, he could talk the language of the man that he had met. And the man said, "How did you learn my language?" And Sakuba wasn't even surprised. He says, "Oh, the shining being in my dream taught it to me. Do you know the people of the book?" And the man said, "I think so. Yes, there's some Christians here. You should come and see them. They have a book that is holy. Come and see them." So he took Sakuba, and Sakuba met them, and he told them his story. And everybody was just amazed that he could talk to them in their own language. And after he was done telling his story, Their pastor said, well, yes, we do have a book. Let me go and get it. He went into his building and he came out and he brought out a Bible. And Tsukuba looked at it and said, that's the book. That is the book. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. And the pastor said, yes, I am so happy too. I am so glad that Jesus sent you here to find this book. You can stay in my house tonight. Come, I will make you a bed. So he made him a bed, and Tsukuba went and lay down in the bed and he went to sleep. And you know what happened? He had another dream. While he was sleeping in that bed that night in the pastor's house, after finding the book, an angel came to him again. And when Tsukuba woke up the following morning, he said, excuse me, I need to leave. And the pastor said, what? Why are you leaving? You wanted me to teach you other things in the book so that you could go back and teach your people. And Tsukuba said, no. The shining being came to me in a dream last night and he said, you're not the right people of the book. And the pastor said, what do you mean? We have the book. He said, no. He said, go find the people who keep the Sabbath in the book. You must find Pastor Moyo. And you must find the people who have not just the book, but also 4 books that are really 9. That sounds really complicated.
9?
4 books that are really 9. I don't understand that. And the pastor didn't understand it either. He said, but that can't be right. Are you sure you had the right dream? Because we're the people of the book. You said Sabbath? Oh, I know what you're talking about. Oh, yes, there's people who worship on some other day of the week. They don't worship on Sunday like we do. But you don't need to listen and worry about that. You just need the book. Just come and let us teach you. And Tsukuba would not stay. He said, nope. The shining being said to find Pastor Moyo and the people who worship on the Sabbath day that's in the holy book. And to find the people that have the 4 books that are 9. I must go. Goodbye. And he left. And as he started to leave, the people got angry and said, you can't leave. You can't leave. You must stay here and learn about this. Well, we want to teach you. And you know what they did? I want you to tell me if this sounds like what Jesus would do. They said, if you're going to leave without letting us teach you about the Bible, we're going to put you in jail. Does that sound like what Jesus would say? No, Jesus would never force anybody. They grabbed him and they threw him in jail. And they kept him there for a few days until finally they could get a judge to come and judge him. And the judge came and they told him the story. And Tsukuba told his story. And the judge said, oh, no. You let this man go. This man is being led by God. You cannot keep him here. And he let them go. He let Tsukuba go. Tsukuba left and he got outside the city. And now he thought, well, I don't know where Pastor Moyo is. There was no telephone for him to use. He didn't have a phone, an internet, an email. This was many, many years ago. How would you find just one person in the middle of all of Africa? You know what Tsukuba did? He prayed. He knelt down and he said, dear shining being, please show me where to go. And when he opened his eyes, he saw a little white cloud way off in the sky, off to one side. There was the only cloud around, no other clouds in the sky. He said, okay, I will follow that cloud. And he followed that cloud. And every morning that he would wake up from sleeping, the cloud would be there and he would follow it. And he followed it for another 120 miles until the cloud stopped right over another town. And Tsukuba went into the town and he asked, excuse me, is Pastor Moyo here? And the people said, yes, but how do you know who Pastor Moyo is? He says, I have come to see him. Please show me to him. He went to Pastor Moyo and said, Pastor Moyo, do you keep the Sabbath that is in the book? And Pastor Moyo, who was also nervous about seeing a bushman, said, yes, I do. He said, okay, very good. And do you have a book? And he said, yes, and he brought out the Bible. And Tsukuba said, very good, that's the Bible I saw in my dream. But also, do you have the 4 books that are really 9? Do you have any idea what he's talking about?
No.
Pastor Moyo knew. He said, I do, just a moment. And he ran inside, and he grabbed 4 other books off of his bookshelf. These were 4 books that were written by a woman named Ellen White. Have you ever heard of Ellen White before? Raise your hand if you've ever heard of Ellen White. She had written some books. You can put your hands down. She had written a series of books, 9 books called Testimonies to the Church. And do you know that even though they were 9 separate books, they had printed them in 4 books. They had collected some together. There were 2 books in one, and 2 books in another, 2 books in another, 3 in another. So there were 9 separate books.
Is that what you have?
No, sweetie, this is just where the story is from. There were 9 separate books, all collected in 4 books. The 4 books that were really 9. And when Pastor Moyo brought those out, Tsukuba said, now I know the shining being has led me to the right place. And Tsukuba stayed there, and he learned and listened, and he learned and he listened. And then he said to Pastor Moyo, we must go and teach my people. Pastor Moyo said, I will try to come as soon as I can. Tsukuba said, I'm leaving ahead of you. And he went back. He walked 270 miles back to get to his people. And when he got back, his people said, what have you come to teach us? And do you know, Tsukuba was able to recite long, long passages of the Bible to them. He could recite long, long passages in their own language Because Sakuba and the Bushmen, all of the Bushmen actually have very, very good memories. They had such good memories that they could memorize the Bible really, really fast. And by the time Pastor Moyo got there a few months later to visit them and teach them, many of the Bushmen already knew large portions of the Bible just by memory. And they became wonderful missionaries. Sakuba himself became a missionary and a pastor, and he was a teacher, and he did that the rest of his life. And many, many people learned about the true Sabbath and about Jesus from hearing the story of this Bushman who had learned about Jesus and learned about the Bible in dreams. Now, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever had a dream where Jesus came to you and taught you to speak a different language? Have you ever learned a new language from your dreams? No, Jesus has never come and taught me any new languages. Jesus has never come and taught me anything in a dream as far as I know. But do you know what? I have a Bible. And I have the writings of Ellen White. And I have a church to go to. And I have people who can talk to me about Jesus. I don't need to walk 270 miles to go and learn anything about Jesus, do I?
No.
No, I can learn about Jesus in my very own home. So if Sakuba the Bushman could travel 270 miles just to find the people that he had seen in the dream, just because he wanted to know so badly more about Jesus and the Holy Book, don't you think it's important for us to also follow the light that we have? To learn about Jesus from the things that we already have in our very own home and in our very own church? Yes, it is. And after we learn those things, we can share them and teach them to other people too, so that other people can learn. Just like Sakuba went and taught other people. No, Sakuba is not alive anymore. That story took place back in the 1950s, and he died, I think, in 1975.
Aww.
But that story of Sakuba is still alive, and we get to learn wonderful things about Jesus and about how important it is to know Jesus from the story of Sakuba. So thank you for listening. Let's close our eyes, bow our heads, and we'll say a prayer for all the people who are learning about Jesus right now. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the story of Sakuba. How wonderful that you came to him, that you sent dreams to him to teach him other languages, and to send him many, many miles of traveling to learn about the true book, the true Sabbath, the true prophet, and all the wonderful things that you have to teach us. Help us not to ignore those things too. Just because we have a Bible sitting in our house and in our car, and on our parents' phone, that is just so easy to go, oh, it's not important. I'll read it later. Help us to be so excited about it like Sakuba was, and to not let anything get in our way to learn the truth in the Bible. We love you very much. Help us to have a good rest of our Sabbath day. Amen.